ever will be. And you know it.
With a tears in my eyes.
The cream of the crop. Acknowledge me.
Good morning, everybody. Different time for Top Rope Nation this week. It's Sunday morning. It's episode 348 of the flagship. Ryan Drosty here with two pretty good friends to talk about WWE Money in the Bank 2024, what we thought of the show, the fallout from the show, and everything in between. Glad that some of you can join us here live in the chat. I see the chat room is already going. If you are in the chat room, give us your grade for last night's Money in the Bank show, which we'll get to here momentarily. But let me welcome him to the show first, Mr. Jesse Velasquez. Jesse, how's it going this morning?
We're feeling okay. Got to sleep in a little bit. Apparently not as much as you, but I'm feeling bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and got the old TRN coffee mug.
Yes. I haven't slept this late in years. I just got up 30 minutes ago. Somehow my children, all three of them, slept in today. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting the natural alarm clock, and it never went off.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife woke me up and was like, "Hey, you have that podcast, right?" I'm like, "Oh my God," I'm jumping out of bed, scrambling, getting ready. So here I am. Feeling good, though. It's a good night's sleep. I haven't had that in a long, long time. So, Jesse, we got a guest on the line today. He hasn't been on the show in a while, but he has been on the show many times before. Mr. Carlo Longhorn joining us from across the pond. Carl, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. It's been a busy few days in the UK. We had an election, elected a new government, which was a big thumbs up from me. And England got through to the Euro semi-finals last night, which I didn't indulge too much in the falling down juice, but it was a bit of a celebration in the Longhorn household.
Nice. I did see those election results over there. Very nice. Don't talk about
Very
elections
good.
to us Americans right now. It's a sore topic.
Yeah, it's all subject. Yes.
But congrats to you guys over there and getting a result that you were clearly rooting for. So that's good. Glad you could join us. Always appreciate having you on the show. Maybe we'll be hearing more from you in the future. We got to talk about some things off air, but we'll see how that's going. And Jesse, I want to thank you and Frank for an awesome job on the Forbidden Door review last week. You guys were great. Obviously, it was good having Frank on the show since he was in the building to provide us that live perspective. But you, my friend, were fantastic in the host chair. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate that as well. I know you were out of town. Justin was at work. That's right. It was it a Monday? Yeah, it was a Monday.
Yes.
Standard Monday. So very fortunate. And Frank and I have really good chemistry. So I was very happy to do that show alongside him. And with him being in the building, it's always a different perspective. And I know that Long Island crowd can be a little tricky at times. And he broke it down tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was great listening. You guys did a great job. I had some good feedback on that show. So you guys check it out if you haven't. It's the Forbidden Door review, episode 347, available here on YouTube and the podcast feed. All right. Well, usually we do what's in the glass. I am definitely not drinking. Carl might be. It's like late afternoon over there. I have coffee. Trying to wake myself up here. Jesse has a Top Rope Nation Unplugged coffee cup. Awesome. Available on our store, topropenation.com. What do you got in there? Just straight black coffee, Jesse?
That is correct. I don't throw any additives in there. Just caffeine me, please.
Yes. Same. It's Dunkin' Donuts, K-Cup, hazelnut, a little flavor to it that's within the coffee, not a syrup or anything like that. So, yeah, black for me as well. Carl, what about you?
So I've got a Scottish lager.
Ooh.
In honor of a man who should still have a briefcase, in my opinion.
Innocent
Gun.
Nice.
So this is an Edinburgh-based brewery, quite a popular one. I tried to find something from Ayr, where Drew McIntyre's from, but couldn't find anything. And I wasn't going to go to a proper beer shop and very much go to the supermarket or the hypermarket, whatever you want to call it, over there to get it. So I picked up one of those. I've got a few more in the fridge. Well, three more in the fridge for later.
Well, I'll expect one of those in my mail here in about a week and a half. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I like the name, Innocent Gun.
Yeah, it's very, very popular in Scotland. You go to Edinburgh, it's in the Witherspoons, which is our big chain pub in the UK. It's really well stocked. But outside of Scotland, so down here in England, you don't find it anywhere outside of London, really. Or some of the bigger cities like Birmingham. So in rural Telford, you don't really find it.
Nice. Very good. You were not at Clash at the Castle, by the way, right?
No, I booked a hotel like just in case, and as soon as the ticket price came out, I was like, no chance. A very similar opinion to I have to All In. Promotions aren't doing enough to justify me paying that sort of money either on a ticket or, in the case of All In, the hotel cost with it being a bank holiday weekend. It's just not. I can enjoy it a lot more being at home. Really than being there in person. If I was in North America, it'd be a lot different because there'd be more choice, but it's just not. Yeah, it's not worth the money. Both companies are cashing in quite a bit on our eagerness to watch pro wrestling in the UK, because we'll watch anything, as the 90s proved.
True, very true, very true. Company was always hot over there, regardless of how things were going here. Well, was the company hot last night? Let's get to this. Let's get to our grades for the show. If you're joining us live, again, hit us in the chat. Let us know your grade, A through F scale for WWE Money in the Bank. I see a few people here. I'm going to throw it to Jesse first. What do you got for the grade last night?
Ooh, I think I'm going to change it on the fly. I was originally going to say a C plus because nothing was horribly egregious and over the top bad. And then I'm like thinking to myself, there's a couple of moments in there where I'm just like, okay, we're going to lower it. Just a flat C. Good news. There were 5 matches. Bad news. 3 hours and 20 minutes and a lot of lag time in between. So that made things difficult for me towards the tail end, especially with the main event, which I felt also dragged on a bit long.
Yeah. So where are you at in the grade again? Sorry.
I'm going to go a C because there really
Flat
isn't
C.
there's nothing I'm going to go back and watch.
Okay. Sorry, my hazy mind is still waking up. Yeah, C. Okay, you're kind of similar to the chat that I'm seeing here. And Niall Clark, strong supporter of the show, gives it a C. Says good in ring, but not great booking wise. Ryan Huffman, big supporter of the show as well. C plus grade from me. Alan Awesome, another one of our patrons. D. Yikes! It was not a good show. We got Howie checking in the chat. He calls it the worst botch in wrestling history. We'll talk about that. Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. Let's see what else. Yeah, what do you got, Carl? Where are you gonna grade it?
Yeah, so I said before we went on, I watched it on delay this morning, which made things a lot easier to watch when you're able to skip through all the filler. I am still probably on that C plus, B minus sort of margin. I probably would say C plus. I just think that there were things nothing jumped out in the show. There was nothing apart from a couple of bits that were all time bad, but you'd be grading on a curve and compare it to previous shows to make it higher. It was entertaining, but it didn't give me what I wanted really from the show overall.
Yeah. I agree with Jesse in that it really was drawn out. I mean, I thought that this show was going to be 3 hours flat with only 5 matches. I mean, usually your Money in the Bank matches are a little longer, but yeah, in between, the stuff just lasted forever. They didn't get to the first match. The bell did not ring until 20 minutes into the show. All the entrances, they did the anthems and all, the big video package, welcome you to the show, all that 20 minutes in. It was a very slow plotting feel to a show that was supposed to be pretty tight. I thought that the matches themselves were mostly okay. The botch in the world title match really took away from that match for me. They were having a pretty good match before that. I thought the main event was predictable and kind of what we expected. I thought the men's Money in the Bank match was decent. I thought the women's match got off to a really shaky start, but then they recovered and had some crazy spots. And I thought the IC title match was surprising and just a weird match all around, as we will talk about. So for me, if you have such a glaring, error in your world title match, regardless of, it was a injury or whatever happened, we don't know yet. I mean, there's rumors out there right now, but regardless, it took away from the match and your world title so much. I can't possibly give this show higher than a C. It's just like, we always talk about our own personal criteria for this. For me, an A show needs a match of the year candidate. Definitely didn't have it on this show. B level, something that I would go back and watch. Nope. I will never watch the show again, other than maybe the injury spot or the blown, the blown kick out, whatever happened there. But that was just, it came across so egregious live and so confusing that it took me totally out of that match. And then what they did with the cash in, we're going to get into all of it, but I would have to go see. Let's see where our listeners are at here on Twitter. Put out the poll. We got exactly 100 votes right now. 42% gave it a B, 32% gave it a C, 12% a D or F, 14% A. I mean, I don't know how you get to an A on this show. It was definitely not an A show. So, I mean, if I'm comparing this to last week and Forbidden Door, now Forbidden Door, like always, was very long, but that had, to me, 2 match of the year contenders on it. I mean, it was an incredible show in ring. There's no comparison between this show and Forbidden Door to me. Jesse, what do you think on that?
So we have 14 fans that love Tiffany Stratton, the Bloodline, and car crashes. Lots of car crashes.
Lots of car crashes. That is right. How would you compare this Forbidden Door, Carl?
It's no comparison, quite frankly, in terms of in-ring. I mean, look, I'm not someone who does this comparing their promotions in a real sort of true sense, in the fact that I'm looking for something different from WWE than what I want from AEW. And I wish some people on X would actually realise that. And actually, if you don't like WWE and like AEW or vice versa, shut up and just enjoy your promotion, because it's so boring, and directing that the Drain Makers of the world and the WWE Gareths of the world who can't seem to do anything but enjoy the other promotion's misfortune. But you cannot, for me, look at Forbidden Door and say it was anything other than a show, and it was far, far superior to Money in the Bank. That said, because of the amount of matches on Forbidden Door, I had to watch it in batches. Because I watched it on a replay, I'm like, I get into the last 4 matches, like, I'm going to take a break because I really want to enjoy these last 4 matches, and I feel a bit spent. So, but the ability to do that in the UK is there because we're watching it. Oh, I'm not watching it live. That doesn't make it a bad show. It just means that you're consuming it a different way. If I'd broken this show up, it would have made no difference in how I enjoyed it. So I think that says a lot. I think both promotions are doing well in different ways, and AEW's in ring and WWE's probably more entertainment. I wouldn't call it cinema, by the way. That's nonsense.
No.
And that's the exact point. 45 minutes longer Forbidden Door went than Money in the Bank, and there was twice the amount of matches, and there wasn't nearly as much filler. My question to people who were in attendance, what's going on in the arena during those commercials, and are they giving you a video package? What else are they showing you? I would love to know.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to a WWE TV in a little over a year, but I mean, a pay-per-view, not in a long time. I mean, I would say, their presentation is really good. I mean, it is a well-lit show. All the colors pop. I thought the intro on the show with like the animated thieves and all that was really cool. They did a great job with that. So, I mean, again, like for kids, my kids watched this with me and they loved it. So I mean, I have to give them credit. It is very engaging as you watch it, just from a presentation perspective. No question about it.
The overhead cameras, I really enjoy those. You're getting some new shots that we haven't seen before. So yeah, they're definitely starting to broaden out, and a nice change from the Kevin Dunn days. There's no longer the just egregious head shaking throughout, camera shaking. It's ridiculous. So that's gone. That's good news.
They've improved. They've improved big time. Getting rid of him, no question about it. So yeah, and as Ryan Huffman noted in the chat, we got that big announcement from John Cena, which we'll talk about here momentarily as well. Before we go any further, guys, you're seeing names scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now on YouTube, and that is the names of all of our wonderful patrons, around 40 of them right now, paying for bonus content from Top Rope Nation, donating to the cause. For $5 a month, you can get access to all of our bonus content, such as Top Rope Nation Classics, which, if you ask our patrons, are the best podcasts we put out every single month. A deep dive on a show from the past. We recently just dropped one on WWE Vengeance 2005, which was a lot of fun. Turned out really well. We've done old school Raw's Wars lately, all kinds of stuff. $5 a month. We also have Top Rope Nation Unplugged, which is the bonus show from Jesse Velasquez right here, and Top Rope Nation Extra, which can be put out by any of us. Altogether, there are more than 150 bonus shows in the archives. You can unlock those immediately by signing up to support us. The link is here in the broadcast description. There's higher tiers too. There's the $10 tier. There's a $20 tier. Starting with the $10 tier, you have access to nominate shows for Top Rope Nation Classics. You also get in on the drawings where I give away Top Rope Nation merch, such as this shirt I'm wearing right now, a coffee cup like Jesse had earlier. Those $10 plus patrons, every quarter we do merch giveaways. It's a drawing. And the $20 tier, they get free merch packs every 6 months. And if I don't send those, please remind me. I think I owe Carl at least another shirt. He's got the merch packs before in the past, though. And that's another benefit of being on the show. You also, with the $20 tier, get to come on the show and be a guest. So check it all out. There's lots of benefits to all of the tiers, but it starts at $5 a month. It's the best way to support Top Rope Nation. And you're getting all those bonus shows, which I think you will enjoy if you like what we do here on the flagship. Carl, I mean, you're a patron. What do you think, man? I mean, what do you like most about being a patron of Top Rope Nation?
I think the mix of content you get from being a patron is really good. Like, I listened to the two recent classic shows during the week. I sort of stacked them up to listen to, and they were really good, quite entertaining. The extra stuff you get with Jesse's Unplugged is very good. I'm looking forward to that making a return. And obviously, you've got some big plans with the network in the offing, which I think will be very good. And I would like to think that will add to that Patreon number. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. The merch is good quality as well, I would say. Like, the hoodies I've got have been fantastic. I think the last one might have gone to the wrong address because I didn't update my delivery address when I moved 2 years ago. So I've made sure I updated it when I recently moved a month ago.
Nice.
So someone in Talbot walking around in a top right.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that.
The one I've got. I need to go on a hunt around where I used to live, like about over 2 years ago now.
Whoa.
Jeez, wow, I didn't know that. Well, I'm glad you did get a hoodie because, yeah, the hoodies are probably my favorite. It's super hot here right now, but in the wintertime, I'm wearing my TRN hoodies all the time. They are pretty high quality.
Yeah.
Justin wears it live shows all the time. You saw the TRN hoodie on AEW Dynasty prominently in the crowd that Justin Joint was wearing. So, yeah, good stuff. Appreciate your support and everybody who is a patron. All right, let's get into the show. Let's start off at the top of the show. So they opened with the men's Money in the Bank match. So you had Jey Uso out there. You had Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. And Drew really seemed like the odds-on favorite to win, I thought, going in. I thought it was going to be either him or Jey, just because Jey is, so over with the crowd. As Jesse often notes, we don't often see that in wins and losses, but he is a guy who's very, very popular. I didn't really see any of these other people winning. I thought we might get a Wyatt 6 appearance to cost Chad Gable the match or something like that. We did not get the Wyatt 6 on the show at all. But in the end, McIntyre wins, which I think was the right call. We can talk about the cash-in attempt later, but Jesse, your thoughts on the match and who they had win?
I like that there was zero interference throughout, and then sandwiched in between the Jey Uso and LA Knight entrances was the quietest I've ever heard a crowd walk out when Andrade made his appearance to the ring. I have never Ryan just pointed it out. He's like, I think Andrade gets the worst no crowd reaction I've ever seen / heard. I sat there in amazement, like, whoa, did anybody walk out? Was it the ghost of John Cena, which we'd get later? So yeah, that was just mind boggling to me. Keep in mind, he just came back to the promotion January 1st. So crazy to me.
I mean, I've seen people talking about how, like, oh man, yeah, Andrade came back. Look how big time he looks out there. And I'm like, I don't know what you're watching. He doesn't seem any better than he was in AEW to me. I mean, he's a really good wrestler, no question. Yes. But it's always seemed kind of like he's missing something. And he just doesn't come across like a top guy at all. And I don't think WWE has utilized him any better than AEW did at all.
Can you say worse? He's the WWE Speed Champion.
That's true. The illustrious Speed Champion.
Oh my gosh. And he took it away from a guy who's going to be heading to AEW, it sounds like, too. So yeah, that just goes to tell you what they kind of think of that belt.
Rick O'Shea.
Yeah. A lot of the similar tropes. I'll get to it when we get to the women's match, but crowds chanting for tables, guys just hanging out waiting for spots. But there was some cool stuff here. The Spanish fly by Andrade, Chad Gable with his suplexes were wonderful. Carmelo Hayes was taking a lot of bumps throughout. I actually wrote in one of my notes, I said, is he going to live? There were two other things I really enjoyed was Chad Gable hanging from the Money in the Bank, just from with the briefcase, and he just falls face first. I don't think we've seen that in the 2 decades of the match, which I thought was a cool touch. And then a lot of CM Punk chants, which I suppose now makes sense. Was it the right winner? I think of all the guys featured, sure. I don't know. I'm a little bit higher on LA Knight than most, but the brass in the WWE isn't, so I understand why you're not going to go with him. Yeah. We'll get into this later, just in how the Money in the Bank briefcase was used to further a story instead of the actual head or trying to hunt a world title down, or a mixture of both. That kind of gets lost in the shuffle too.
Yeah. Yeah. With the Punk chance, I mean, I think if Drew wasn't going to win, everyone expected Punk to cost him the match. And so that was kind of a distraction. And then when he didn't cost him the match, it's like, he's there. So something's going to happen later. And you're just waiting for Punk to come out. Like he's done it in so many of his big matches that it's just expected at this point in time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Carmelo Hayes took some crazy moves. There was that sunset flip from Andrade to Hayes onto the ladder. That looks sick live. That was insane. Yeah, Carl, what did you think?
Yeah, it was an interesting match in a sense that at least we had a couple of people that we thought could win. I'd say that for the same for the women's match. I mean, one of the negatives for me for the ladder match in AEW was it was so clear Perry was winning. I think that kind of hindered it. I would agree that McIntyre was the correct choice to win it. Would I have liked them to do something different than what they did in the briefcase? Probably not, because I think the Money in the Bank is a bit played out now at the moment. And, if you're going to, the best use, and that's an indictment on how to use the Money in the Bank. It's not a praise for WWE. If the best use of it was to get this this Punk story, they could have done it differently. But at the end of the day, I was listening to Fightful, and they said effectively, what Punk is, it feeds into Punk being a spiteful bitch. And I agree. He effectively let Drew have the moment and grasp it away from him. So, yeah, I'm a little bit mixed on the match because the Chad spot took me out of it a bit. But unfortunately, when I see spots like that, I instantly think of Owen because of what was intended with Owen falling from 6 feet, and it kind of took me out of it. I was like, oh yeah, that. Okay, I get it was a safe spot, but I didn't like it. I just don't like people taking that sort of bump. It's too risky. I'm maybe a bit too soft for my old age now, but overall, it was a fairly average ladder match. It just felt a bit there. But to be fair, I didn't give it my fullest attention because I'm a mate for a few weeks, so we were catching up a little bit and putting up a curtain rail at the same time. So maybe if I rewatch it, I might go, actually, it's a better than average ladder match. But for me, it was there, and McIntyre won, which I liked. And let's move on with things. And on the Andrade front, it's telling when my friend who's kind of semi-casual said, I don't get Andrade. What is he? He just gets nothing for me. And I have to go and say, well, watch his match with Gargano from NXT, the Rumble weekend in 2018. He's like, why would I go back and watch something from 6 years ago? I'm like, well, that's the best of Andrade there. You're not going to see anything more than that now. He's gone. He's just there. He's catching a check. I think that there's an attitude problem there. I think it's come through in both promotions.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to Jesse's point in the chat, when his theme comes on and that video plays, I mean, zero response from the crowd. It was just dead. Yeah, he's not very over. He can work, but I mean, pretty much ends there. Yeah, it was. I don't think there was anything on this show that was higher than like 3.5 stars. There was no 4-star matches to me. I mean, this is probably in that like 3.5 mix with a couple other things on the show, but like to me, there was nothing over that. I mean, it was like average, slightly above average. if this was like the only ladder match you had ever seen, you'd be like, holy crap, that was insane. That was so awesome. But like, we've seen all this stuff other than like a couple of spots that were unique, like, the Gable spot. We've seen this all so many times before that it just loses its effectiveness, I think. And we can talk about with the cash in when we get there, but the Money in the Bank gimmick is just, to me, it's become kind of played out. I joked on our Twitter account that, well, at least they got rid of that albatross already tonight, but it's like, it can be used well still, but it feels like more often than not in recent years, it's like they get it on a guy who they don't really want to have it on, but they just have to because somebody has to win, and then they just lug it around all year, and then finally they cash it in. Priest was a deserving winner, but it felt like they finally just had to pay it off, and now he has the world title, and he shouldn't be world champion. Again, we talk about on the show all the time. It's not because he's not good. It's just that he's not slotted in that position on the show right now. And so it's weird. And like we'll talk about his booking, but it feels to me like he's just been booked from behind the entire run. Like, why would you think of him as the top star on Raw? Just based on how all of his matches go. So that wasn't the best use of the Money in the Bank tonight or last night. I don't think was either. We'll get to all of it. But yeah, that was the opener. Drew McIntyre gets the win. It was what it was. I don't really have any thoughts.
Yeah, you don't want back-to-back years of somebody holding the briefcase for 9 to 10 months. It gets repetitive, which, case in point, the Money in the Bank, the whole thing is repetitive. Last thing I was going to mention, was the actual definition of yeet is throwing something, and Jey Uso got absolutely yeeted by Drew McIntyre in the ladder last night.
Oh, man. Yeah, the javelin spot. That was pretty crazy. That was good. I like that. I thought that was funny. All right. So yeah, they went 16 and a half minutes. So not on the longer side really of these historically. I feel like they go 20 minutes and beyond a lot of the time. So it was a little tighter. And they go right from that to Sami Zayn defending the IC title against Bron Breakker. And outside of the botch, this was one of the strangest matches last night, I felt, because I think everybody expected Bron Breakker to win going in. He's been booked strongly on TV, seems very unstoppable. Sami doesn't really need the IC title. His whole run has been kind of surprising. I don't think we forecast him to beat Gunther at WrestleMania. So it was weird from a crowd perspective, I thought. Like Sami comes out, he's the home countryman there in Canada. They're in Toronto last night. And he didn't really get that strong of a response, I didn't feel. And it felt almost like, yeah, all right, we all know he's going to lose kind of thing. And the crowd was kind of dead in this match. So like early on, Breaker's working him over. He's trying to get heat from the crowd and silence. They're not getting behind Sami for the comeback at all. It was just a really, really weird dynamic. And I don't know if it was just that feeling of inevitability or what, but they never really had the crowd with them. And then Sami Zayn won clean. Like they didn't protect Breakker at all. This guy you've pushed so strong on TV. I found the whole match to be very, very surprising and odd. It was just a weird, weird match to me. Don't you want to protect Bron Breakker, this guy you have built up as this unstoppable force, on Raw, and then he just loses clean? I know Sami Zayn's an established star, but he could gain something by beating him. Sami would lose nothing. I don't get the result. They did a backstage interview with Sami later where he was like, yeah, everyone's been counting me out. I don't know why. He doesn't. I love Sami Zayn, but he doesn't need the IC title. Maybe Justin Joint out there will be very happy when he sees the result, but very confounding result to me. Jesse, what did you think?
Yeah, I would have gone with Braun here. I actually will admit that Braun kind of stepped up a little bit last night. There was a couple of times where Sami went for an aerial move and Braun went out of his way to save him. I think it was the Arabian moonsault to the outside where he bounced off the ropes. Yeah, Braun ran up, kind of caught him and just furthered him from landing on his head. Same thing when Sami crawled up to the top of the barricade to hit a moonsault. Braun kind of saved him from face planting and head diving. So, I mean, it was good to see the ring awareness and the maturation of Bron Breakker. So he held his own, I felt. Would I have liked to have seen him win? Yes. I'm just wondering to myself if they play this rematch at SummerSlam, Braun gets the win on American soil, and then we all think, well, let's get to that later. Then Sami, I think, gets propelled into the world title picture. Maybe just because he's starting to get all these victories. They're like, somehow, some way, how is he doing this? And then playing off the fact there's likely going to be a new champion who he beat for this Intercontinental title. You got a ready-made contender at some point in time.
Yeah. So maybe they're just waiting timing wise. That makes some sense. Yeah. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, I think Jesse's hit the nail on the head there. I think there's not that place at the top of the card yet for Sami to move up to. So you wait it out and have him move up post SummerSlam. What they do with Braun from a character point of view here is interesting because he's been on this war path and this path of destruction. Obviously, part of that's, done to get rid of someone off TV that's leaving, or we assume he's leaving. And then to build up to the Sami Zayn thing. I think with the crowd, for me, it was a little bit like, had we gone to the well too many times with the Sami Zayn plucky underdog story when it's the crowd thinking he's probably going to lose, it lacks that moment. And also the last big moment they had in Canada, or the last two big moments they had in Canada were really big moments. The Raw moment from earlier in the year, and then the Elimination Chamber last year, which were all around. So they felt bigger, whereas this just felt a bit more meh, to be really unarticulate.
Yeah. I mean, Breakker feels like a star to me when he's in the ring. I mean, he just is like when he hits the ropes and he's going so fast, he looks really incredible. They've done a good job with his presentation as a wrestler and being unstoppable. I hate the name still. I don't know why you wouldn't call him Steiner when he has that last name. And then they even hint at it, when oh, that's not a clothesline, that's the Steiner line. Yeah, we know. Why the hell aren't you calling him Steiner? Like that's very strange to me. He's not great on the mic. I don't know why they're forcing him to talk. You guys all know, not one of my favorites, but he needs to be booked like Goldberg. Doesn't need to really be doing interviews at all. Just defeat guys quickly. The match was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But the Frankensteiner that he hits, he looks super agile. I mean, he's got the tools, no question about it. I do think they could tweak the presentation a little bit. But overall, shocking result to me. And the crowd was definitely very confused. So I think you're probably right, Jesse. Maybe it's just the timeline of what they have planned in the future. I mean, I would argue if that's the case, don't book the match. Just wait. But they booked the match, and they probably thought Sami was going to get this massive response going back to Canada, but he just didn't. It was a very, very strange match. Speaking of very strange, this shocked the crowd. Out comes John Cena. And John Cena's out there next, and he announces his retirement from professional wrestling. And when he came out onto the ramp, I'm trying to find the screenshot because I had it on our Twitter page, he had this towel that said, "The last time is now." So watching this, you're like, what the heck is going on here? And like one of the first things he says when he gets to the ring is that I am announcing that 2025, I'm retiring from professional wrestling. And then he says 2025 will be his last year in wrestling. And he goes on to say that it will be his last Royal Rumble, that it will be his last Elimination Chamber, and that it will be in Las Vegas, his last WrestleMania. He didn't say his last match was going to be at WrestleMania. He just said it will be his last WrestleMania. And so then there was a lot of mixed messaging on social media that, oh no, he's leaving at WrestleMania. That's going to be his retirement match. But no, that is not what he said. He said it's going to be his last Mania. And then we found out in the post-show scrum that he is working essentially January to December, and he's working somewhere between 30 and 40 shows. So he wants to go out with a bang and work a lot. Interestingly, he said in the post-show scrum that this was not his call, which was odd. He said that he had pitched in the past that if he was going to retire, this is how he would do it. And that he said WWE basically contacted him and was like, this is the time to do it. So they're doing it. And he's doing this retirement tour. And so, I mean, I guess it's going to play out, like we've seen with some NBA players when they retire and they get the whole farewell tour on the way out, and he kind of leaned in that. He said in the post-show scrum, if you want to see me one last time, this is your chance, come out to the arena. He talked about Raw moving to Netflix in January and how that's going to be a destination TV. Talked about this with Jeremy on BR last night a little bit. It would be really good for them to, in the first Raw match, or his first match on Raw on Netflix, if they made it like a match for the title or something. Like he's trying to beat Ric Flair's, run as however many times, 16-time world champion. If he challenged to try to break Flair's record on like the first Raw on Netflix, that would draw a huge audience. And I think having Cena on those shows early on Netflix is going to be huge. They can put Raw right on the home screen with John Cena's face. Everybody knows him. No matter how big of a star people in this promotion now, like Rollins and Roman Reigns are, they don't hold a candle to the star power of John Cena. So if you get John Cena's face on that Raw banner on the home page of Netflix, way more people are going to click on it. So to have him around right when they transition to Netflix is going to be huge for them. I was caught totally off guard. I did not expect this at all, but we're getting the John Cena farewell tour. Jesse, what do you think?
He hasn't been a full-time guy in 8 years.
Yeah.
Good news is he's got close to 6 months to get himself ready. And I think the way that he takes his training, or that he's always took his training, he's going to be just fine. I do. I mean, there's going to be ring rust in the beginning. There's zero question. He's a guy who's now closer to 50, I believe, than 40. I think he's 47. If somebody
47, yeah.
Yeah, someone said that in the press scrum last night. And there's a new generation of guys to work with, which is what he mentioned in the press scrum. So we'll be looking forward to that. You get a couple of larger matches. Like you said, you could throw something huge on the marquee week 1 to Netflix, and it's going to draw some eyes. So do I like it? I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where, to me, it is what it is because he's been gone for so long. He's a massive movie star now, and now there's a different generation of kids, because we've brought this up before with Dwayne Johnson. There's a different generation that's never seen him work.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that bonus, and maybe that'll draw some more eyes to the product and just see what's going on. So I guess it's a win-win for the WWE. For people like us who've been watching for 2-3 decades, it's fine. There really isn't much to it. 16-time world champion. Now there's the alluring of a 17th. I don't know if I want a charity run. And I don't know if Triple H is the type of person to book a charity run in 2024 or 2025, just based on what's been going on with these world championships. Ever since he stepped foot, there's been a lot of prestige added to these now.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was going to ask Carl that, and Ryan Huffman mentioned in the chat, will he get one world title run? What do you think, Carl? Will John Cena win the title during this last year?
If I was booking, no. I would have him try to get the title on maybe a couple of occasions, because I think that is the better story to tell. I don't think Cena probably wants to get to 17, and personally, I think he would rather just keep it at 16. We know it's a work number in terms of what we know Ric Flair's actual number's higher anyway, but Dave Meltzer was quite keen to point out this morning when I listened to him. I smiled to myself when I listened to that and thought, good old Dave, he'll never forget, level out and go. In terms of how this works and it's the strength of the idea, from a business point of view, it's fantastic. And the good thing for people like ourselves that have been watching for a number of years, enough time's passed since the 2018, 2019 period of Cena where he was getting beat like a drum by everyone, by absolutely everyone. I think it was I remember the last loss that he had that meant something was probably Nakamura on SmackDown in the build up to SummerSlam 2018. And he was getting beat. And I think now we've got 2017, not 2018, apologies. Enough time's passed. There's newer eyeballs on the product who will know Cena as the movie guy. They'll come on to it. On the Ringworth thing, I mean, if he's coming back for January, is it out of the question that he does some house shows around Christmas? They do a lot of house shows around that period traditionally. He could, like Punk tried to kick up some rust, and obviously that went very well because he was injured in his first televised match back. But I think that could be something they do. It makes sense. It going on all year, the worry is it'll drag on. And what's the destination at the end of it? Like it being originally when they announced it, I was like, Mania, okay, that makes sense. And then when I was like, oh, it's not Mania. Like, okay, maybe they're doing SummerSlam in Boston. No, he's going to go on to what they're going to have a thank you Cena PLE on December the 31st. So that's the bit that I don't get, and that's the bit where it could get old. And
Yeah.
I don't want that dominating TV.
I threw that out on the BR show last night. I said, can you imagine if they did SummerSlam at Fenway Park and that was his farewell? That would be incredible. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? He made it sound like it was going to be the full year in the press scrum. I don't know that he'll win the world title. I see Ryan put that in the chat too, that Gunther's going to win the world title and Cena will take it off him. I could see it, just John Cena being this all-American hero, taking it away from Gunther. I mean, that's kind of the way WWE books. I agree with you though, Carl, that I don't know that he would want to win it, and he would maybe rather just stay tied with Flair. One of the other things about this, it's true that there's the new generation of talent for him to work with. At the same time, I don't know that there's a big dream match out there. If you think of the top stars in the promotion, he's pretty much worked all of them. So like when you get to the point of booking his WrestleMania opponent, I don't know if any names come to mind for you guys, but when I was going through in my head the top stars in the promotion that would be this huge dream match, it's like he's pretty much worked all of them already. So I don't really see one out there right now. You guys have any ideas?
Larger names, no. I mean, Bron Breakker obviously is one. Gunther's another. I think he was mentioned, but outside of that, not really. He's worked with Cody Rhodes, hasn't he?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, gosh. And I'm looking back to 2023 where he put over Austin Theory night one of WrestleMania in Los Angeles. And then he also, in his last PLE appearance, one of the rare wins for Solo Sikoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely would have to be one of those really new guys. Cause yeah, like Roman, Seth, of course he's worked The Rock. I mean, the biggest names he's definitely worked. It looks like Cody, I mean, not this version of Cody, but Cena and Cody had a Raw roulette match at one point in time where Cena beat him. So yeah, I mean, they had several years there where their careers overlapped. It was definitely a different time in Cody's career, but yeah, they've worked a few times, it looks like. So I don't know. We'll see. Now, I will say with the, like the younger kids that haven't seen him, my kids, no pun intended, my kids are just starting to realize who John Cena is. My daughter came home from school one day and had got a book about John Cena from the library and was so excited about it. So she's never seen him in person. So if he works a show around here, I will for sure take my kids just so they could see him in person. So I think there's definitely an allure for this next generation of kids who have heard about this all-time legend that have never had a chance to see him, and now he's going to work a lot. So I mean, good on him for committing to 30 to 40 dates as of right now. He's going to be out there a lot, and you'll have your chance certainly. Yeah, Orton for the millionth time at WrestleMania, says Niall.
I'm not sure about that. One name that I think he will end up working, whether it's in a big American PLE or over in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I can see him working Logan Paul.
Yeah,
I can see that match. It's not. I'm not saying that's a dream match, guys. By the way, don't shoot me. But that's a sort of thing you can see Nick Khan absolutely loving, probably getting slightly aroused over potentially.
Yeah. And I do think that they'll probably get to a Punk match at some point if Punk stays healthy, just given the history of those guys, and they've had some really awesome matches in the past. So that will probably be on the horizon. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, after that, they went into the world title match, smack dab in the middle of this show. Damian Priest defending against Seth Rollins. And yeah, as I said at the top, they were having a really good match, which is to be expected. Both of these guys, excellent performers in the ring. And what did you guys think, by the way, of the decibel meter that they had going on during the show? Too hokey, or did you like that?
Little hokey. I guess I didn't understand it. I mean, unless you're going to feature this year round, then you can kind of just throw some more statistics in there if you want to, but otherwise hokey.
It seemed like it wasn't legit. There was a couple times where the crowd definitely wasn't that loud and it was reading 100 decibels. Come on.
I would have loved to see the decibels for Andrade's entrance.
I'm very much a show, not tell sort of guy when it comes to wrestling. One of my biggest things is pushing someone hard when he's not over. This to me is the same thing. You're trying to tell me this crowd's great. Just let them show me they're great.
Yeah. They were selling dissension with the Judgment Day still. They had this segment where backstage Damian was talking to him. He goes off, and Balor looks like maybe he's thinking about double crossing him or something. Again, match itself, pretty good. There was a spot where Rollins did a Hurricane Rana to reverse a choke slam, which looked pretty cool live. But they get to that. I mostly just want to talk about the botch because that's what everyone's talking about. So they were up on the corner and they did the superplex spot right out of the corner. I'm just going off of memory here. And then Rollins is he rolls through. He's going for the Falcon Arrow. And then Priest reverses that. And then Priest gets Rollins up, and then Rollins reverses it. And so then Rollins is going down to his feet, and he clips real quickly. If you watch really closely in the replay, he clips Priest with his knee a little bit here as he's coming down. And then Rollins hits the Falcon Arrow into the cover. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. No kick out from Damian Priest. And you can see him looking at the entranceway. And my initial response live was that they missed the cue on the music, because shortly after this, Drew McIntyre's music comes on. And it felt live, and maybe this is the case, we still don't know. It felt live, like the music was supposed to come on, and maybe Rollins gets distracted, or something, because he's not going to win off the Falcon Arrow. This very odd sequence here. But yeah, Priest kept his shoulders down. And there's some speculation that he was just briefly knocked loopy, or some people say he might have had a stinger. He took the Falcon Arrow perfectly, right on his back. It was totally clean. So it would have to be from that knee. But right after he failed to kick out, he's rolling out of the ring. He's walking around. So it wasn't like he was immobilized for a long time. You do see him kind of wiggle his fingers a little bit when he doesn't kick out. So the whole thing was very strange. But the problem is, you guys, they are zoomed in on this tight shot of the cover, and he very clearly lost. And there's always been this rule in pro wrestling that if a guy doesn't kick out, you count the 3. And they didn't. And the ref just stops the count. The crowd boos. Your world champion, who has been booked from behind the whole time, he always needs help to win. He needs CM Punk to help him beat Drew McIntyre. He's hard to take as the world champion, given he's probably 4th or 5th down the line, on the pantheon of the top stars on WWE Raw right now. Yet again, he looks weak. Maybe through no fault of his own. Maybe he was knocked out. But you just can't have that in a world title match. I know it sucks. They were having a good match. But they're zoomed in from the ring apron tight on this. And you can see clear as day he lost. But then they just go with it. Rollins looks very confused. And then just seconds later, Drew McIntyre's theme comes on. And out comes Drew, and he cashes in the Money in the Bank. And they're going to make this a triple threat. Although Damian is kind of out of it for the next couple of minutes, and he's on the outside. Guys, the botch that everyone is talking about. Jesse, I'll throw it to you. Thoughts on this whole sequence?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I could have saw out of that, like you mentioned, was the Rollins knee to Priest on the reversal. Maybe could have just stunned him for a moment. He looked a little glossy-eyed when that 2 and that potential 3 was coming down. But outside of that, I really don't know what in the world the miscommunication was there. So it looked terrible. The crowd was extremely confused. And at that point, let's say you do play out and Rollins wins the match and McIntyre runs down to cash it in. How in the world can you justify Damian Priest trying to win it back too? Or is he just completely eliminated from the picture if you're going off of the fact that Damian's supposed to be the one that's holding the championship when this is over?
Yeah. I found the clip that Zach Haydorn had shared. I froze it so we don't get a copyright flag. But it's right here, right as Seth is coming down, right before he hits the Falcon Arrow, and his knee clips him on the side of the head a little bit. So maybe, and we're still waiting for reporting to confirm this, but it doesn't look like anything that big. It doesn't. And then when you got the pin, if I can fast forward here, I mean, you can see him looking to. Yeah. He's either looking at his hands or he's looking at the entranceway, which is why I thought live that he was waiting for the theme to come on, and that's why he didn't kick out, and they screwed up the production cue. And I don't know. The way Seth is sitting, like the whole thing is weird. Like, would the music stop the ref from counting? It shouldn't. Would Seth like pop up and that's how he gets out of the pin? What was planned? Whole thing very awkward. But all I know is your world champion from this camera shot right here was clearly pinned, and that ain't great. That's not good for your product. You know, are they even going to try to explain this? They're just going to move on like it didn't happen. I mean, they're probably just going to ignore it. I don't know. Hunter was asked about it in the post-show scrum, which is the other thing. If he really was injured, Hunter should have said it in the post-show scrum, but he didn't. One of the first things he said is a couple nicks and bruises, but we came out very healthy from the show. And then he was specifically asked about this. And he just said, well, it looked to me like he was supposed to kick out and he didn't kick out. He just kind of sarcastically. And then Hunter went into this diatribe where he talked about how, you know, back in his day, that kind of thing that's all he would have thought about. And, you know, it would have ruined his night. He would just thought about that spot. But then he went into talking about how these guys should think about how things happen and the whole rest of the match was really good. And that's true. But look, this is what's going to stick with people. I mean, people were talking about in our chat the minute we started our show. It's just not a great situation, you guys. And I don't know how you can possibly explain it away. The ref didn't count 3 as they're expected to do if someone doesn't kick out. Very messy and definitely took away from the show to me. Carl, maybe you think differently. What do you think?
No, I don't disagree at all. I think he probably did get a stinger. The fact that Paul Levesque wouldn't say that is a little bit like, why just not say that? If you're going to break kayfabe in the way that he did effectively in that diatribe to me, because it was a lot of nonsense that he came out with, which isn't unusual for a Triple H or Paul Levesque statement or sentence these days, it feels. I think it just adds to the feeling with Priest, unfortunately, that he's an afterthought in this whole situation. Like, to me, I'm maybe a little bit lower on the match than others. I felt Seth didn't look 100%. He looks like he's possibly carrying a little... Look, I'm a fat man. He looked like he was a little bit tubby around the mix session. Maybe he's not fully back to 100%. And did they rush him back to do this to then interweave him into the Punk Drew stuff? I don't know. It's difficult. By bringing Seth back, Seth's going to have a significant match, you would think, at SummerSlam. And as you say, you're going to have Punk Drew, whatever Seth's doing, and Priest Gunther, and Niall said this. It just does not feel like a significant match. And if the aim is to build Gunther up to Berlin, look, he's going to be stonking over in Berlin. Germanic-speaking people, they're going to get behind him. But that's one show. You're then going to go to Bad Blood. You're then going to go to Saudi Arabia. You're then going to go through the rest of the year with Gunther, presumably. They've failed with Priest already, to get him over. And he deserves a lot more because he's putting in good performances, but they're not positioning him in the right place. And this botch just won't help him. And, he had a botch he had an issue in the last match when he had the spot of the rope that he dealt with really well.
Yeah. But he got tied up. Yeah. It
has that feel of he doesn't feel the guy on Raw, and it's a shame because he's got all the talent in the world, but I don't see where he goes after dropping his title. He probably goes back into the mid card, and it's a waste.
Yeah.
That's exactly where he's headed.
Yeah. Huffman in the chat, I did like the Seth Punk interaction. Yeah, so Seth was pissed at Punk that Punk got involved, and cost him the match. So basically, Punk comes out, beats the hell out of Drew McIntyre, and he gives him the belt shot after the cash in. So we had McIntyre out there, so now it's McIntyre, it's Rollins, it's Priest. Punk comes out, just destroying Drew McIntyre, hits him with a belt shot. Then we get Priest back in the ring. He hits the South of Heaven for the pinfall. And so Rollins didn't take the pin. McIntyre did. So they protected Rollins. But then Rollins is staring down Punk, who was sitting over at the announce table. And then they're teasing that, like, he's going to... we know that Rollins and Punk was the plan for Mania at one point. And, they're going to get to that match, too. That was the initial interaction that Punk had when he returned to WWE at Survivor Series was Rollins, staring at him from the ring and swearing at him and everything. So then they're teasing it like maybe this will be a triple threat thing with Drew McIntyre, Rollins, and Punk. All I know is Damian Priest and Gunther does not feel like a world title match. Just like Niall said, I think 2 heels at SummerSlam. I don't like this. I've talked about it on the pod a lot. Not that I'd want to see Seth Rollins, as a transitional champion by any means. I still think that McIntyre should have won the title. I do at Clash at the Castle. I know he would have had the Gunther match. I laid this out on the pod many times because Gunther won King of the Ring, that Gunther could have said, hey, you and Punk can have the match at SummerSlam. I'll face it, Bash at Berlin. It's my home ground, home court advantage, so to speak. I'll delay my match. You guys can take each other's heads off at SummerSlam. And they could have got out of that booking conundrum from the King of the Ring stipulation. And they still could have done Punk and McIntyre world title match at SummerSlam, or they could have made it a triple threat, potentially. Or they could have had Drew cash in and win it here. And they could have done Drew and Punk and Gunther at SummerSlam in a triple threat, which could protect Punk because he's coming off the injury. And in a triple threat, he wouldn't have to do as much, keep him more safe. I know that's not the ideal way to pay off this blood feud they've had going on, but they would still get to the singles match. I think there's a lot of different ways they could have gone here. All I know is second biggest show of the year, in my opinion, is SummerSlam. Some will say Royal Rumble. I've always thought SummerSlam is one of the top 3 shows of the year. To have 2 heels fighting for the world title does not make sense to me. And the other title match we'll talk about in a second that they look to have set up also doesn't feel like a legitimate world title match. And for such a huge show at a football stadium in Cleveland, I think there's a lot of issues with this booking. And, we talked about the albatross of the Money in the Bank some years. We want Gunther to win the world title, but this is kind of complicated things because they have to do the match because of that stipulation. But you got Punk and Drew McIntyre, which is the best feud they have going, and it's not going to be for a title. And instead you're left with this placeholder champion and Damian Priest, who now has to wrestle a fellow heel. Make sense of it, guys. Can you? I'm lost here.
Nope. You absolutely cannot. You have 3 guys that are upstaging your inferior world championship, so it really isn't going to mean much. And even when Gunther gets crowned, then who becomes the first person to challenge him? Like I said, you could go the Sami Zayn route or wait on that, but the McIntyre Punk thing's I'm assuming is going to continue to drag through to Bad Blood, which they just announced last night. That'll be the marquee match on the show. So that world title is probably going to won't really be featured on, maybe not till the beginning of 2025. It's going to be a while, I believe. So yeah, you really can't make any sense of it. What you can make sense of is Rollins being ticked off for the time being because now he can't challenge for this world championship because Priest holds it. So that was another little cool tidbit throughout. But nope. Other than that, yeah, I think they've handcuffed themselves for in my opinion, the rest of the year with that world title.
Yeah. Carl, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Jesse. They're just from its inception, this Raw World Heavyweight Championship has felt a little bit of an afterthought. Felt a bit of we need to get a title on the show because Roman's not going to be doing many of them. And now we've got Cody as champion. Okay, didn't defend the belt this show, but he is defending the belt on most shows. It just feels a little bit of an afterthought and an experiment and an opportunity to experiment with guys. But to experiment, you need to have an actual intent, and there just hasn't felt an intent with Priest. I don't know whether Vince was maybe a bit more hands-on with the product when Priest got the Money in the Bank last year, and it's a bit of a hangover from that. I don't know, and that's why this went so far into the carrying the briefcase, and it's kind of come to nothing. But Jesse's right. Even switching it to Gunther, that's not going to change anything if there's no guys there that are deemed higher than the hierarchy to challenge. Do you go back maybe Seth, because they played on Seth Gunther earlier in the year, in January, I believe. Maybe go back to that and maybe they have a series to end the year. That would elevate Gunther and they would, in theory, have good matches.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I would still probably suggest the end result of that will be Seth getting the belt back, because that's how Triple H tends to book.
Mm-hmm. It's messy. It's very messy. Yeah. So we'll move on. We'll get more information on this. I don't want to step on my own toes too much if more information comes out on the botch and everything. But I mean, regardless of the botch, I did not like the execution here that much. Like we said earlier, with Drew getting the chance to cash in, but they blow it in one night, and it just all seemed kind of nonsensical. The thing about it is, as we said on the show many times, Money in the Bank makes way more sense for a heel. And he's a heel, and he could have carried this around and used it as a threat for a while. And instead, they tried to blow it in one night, and it was very messy. Not a huge fan. And I think just SummerSlam just seems very, very messy right now. The booking is not ideal. So after this, they go to the women's Money in the Bank. And it's like the crowd is kind of stunned from that finish. And so they're kind of working from behind already. And so with the women's Money in the Bank match, we have, of course, Tiffany Stratton out there. We've got Zoe Stark, Naomi, Lyra Valkyria, Io Sky, and Chelsea Green. And it seemed like Stratton was easily the favorite by far coming into this match. I could have seen maybe Chelsea Green winning. Mm-hmm. She was phenomenal in this match, by the way. She wears this Canada gear, and they're pointing out in commentary, she's not even from Canada. And the crowd's going nuts for Chelsea Green. She's super entertaining. It seemed like it was going to be one of those two, but almost a lock that it was going to be Tiffany Stratton. And of course, she did win. The match, I thought, was very, very sloppy early on. There was this awkward kind of spot in the corner. There's a ladder spot with like Io Sky and Valkyria that didn't look good. Then there was a spot where, Valkyria comes down and she like slams her arm on the ladder in kind of an ugly way. And then right after that, you had Zoe Stark do this like kind of botched senton into the ring where she just smashed the back of her head on the ladder, and things were getting a little bit off the rails. But by the end, they kind of recover. They had some pretty cool spots. There's a thing where Naomi, she got like into the splits between the two ladders as they were kind of moving apart. And then she hit a DDT on Stark, which looked good. And then Chelsea Green, my God. So her and Tiffany Stratton, they set up 2 tables earlier on the outside. And it looks like Chelsea Green has the match won, and she's climbing up to the top. And then Stratton gets up there with her, and they're in the middle of the ring on these ladders. And Chelsea Green took one of the craziest spots you will see outside of a death match, where from the ladder in the middle of the ring, she crashes over the outside, over the top rope, through those 2 tables. It was an incredible, incredible visual sequence. And that allows Tiffany Stratton to then capture the briefcase. I thought Tiffany winning was the correct decision. She has the momentum of all of these ladies in the ring. Again, like I said, very sloppy early, but by the end they had some cool spots, but nothing particularly great. I wouldn't go any higher than 3.5 on this, maybe more like 3.25. Jesse, thoughts?
There was a decent amount of praise for this match online, and I looked at everyone like I was fearful for lives. You mentioned 2 of those spots with Lyra clipping her head. She also suplexed herself onto the ladder when she tossed Io over the ladder and suplexed herself. You had that. We also had there was a third one in there that I just went, these women. Oh, Chelsea hitting the unprettier on Naomi. Yeah. Naomi got none of it. Chelsea's entire back hits the ladder.
Yep.
I think Lyra again kind of pierced herself, and then I think other than the Chelsea table spot, Io with the spot to Zoe Stark's where it looked like she almost decapitated her head. I was getting extremely nervous, and this is where I said right here, I said, okay, we can be done with these Money in the Bank ladder matches for 2-3 years, 4, 5, somewhere in there. I'm starting to just fear for the safety of these women, especially since they only work this once a year, maybe twice. Yeah. So, and this concept's just not new anymore. They've been doing this this is the 8th iteration of the women's Money in the Bank. So I guess if you want to go to 10 and then stop, I guess do it that way. But at this point, now it's just become, let's use the women's term on this. It's who has the larger ovaries and can just make a huge splash, I think, these days. So right winner, though, Tiffany Stratton. She's definitely on the up and coming. There's zero question there, in spite of her little blip earlier about a month or 2 ago on social media.
She did have a backstage interaction shortly after this with Trish Stratus, who was hosting the show, and that was pretty awkward. Not great, but essentially teasing that they could have a match down the line. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, she's definitely the right choice. She talked in the post-show scrum about going to redecorate the case, probably make it pink or something. Ryan Huffman in the chat. The most annoyed I was watching the show was listening to Cole talk about Chelsea's fear of heights, yet they showed an interview of her doing on the roof of the CN Tower. Yeah. Carl, what do you think of the match?
Yeah, so the first show I did for this illustrious podcast was the Money in the Bank 2022 show, and the Women's Money in the Bank match that year was business exposing in terms of how bad it was. This wasn't quite there, but some of the spots and the botches were quite bad. Zoe Stark, I don't quite know what they see in her, because putting her in this situation, she's not that style of wrestler. They're asking her to do things that she can't do. I remember a description about Frankie Kazarian that I think Liam O'Rourke described. He's got the ability of a 4 trying to do the moves with 7. I feel like Zoe Stark's a little bit like that at times in these situations, where she's trying to do things that are above her station, or she's been asked to do things that are above her station. Dave Meltzer called it a good match. Again, he's enjoying that California living a bit too much, I think, at the moment, Dave, because this was an average match. Right winner, absolutely right winner. I love Tiffany Stratton. I think her character's fantastic. Her as a chicken shit heel with Nia as champion will be quite amusing, because it'll be that, trying to outfox the big heel to get the cash in right. That'll be entertaining, but the match itself is a bit, I don't want to see another. I would go further than just the women's. I don't want to see another Money in the Bank match for the next 5 years, men's or women's. I'm just so done with it. It was played out 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I'll be quick. This is exactly how I felt about the TNT title match at Forbidden Door too. I'm just completely over the ladder match concept.
We did a podcast on Top Rope Nation 6 years ago, 2018, where we talked about, has the gimmick run its course? It was 6 years ago in 2018. Yeah, it is, like the newer fans get into it because they haven't seen it. But if you've been watching this product all along, it is very played out. I will say that. So, yeah, but I think we all agree, right winner, not a great match. Recovered, like I said, by the end, they did some cool stuff. But yeah, it was very, very sloppy for the first half of the match, no question about it. So we go from that to our main event, which is the Bloodline taking on Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. And I was intrigued going into this because I knew that, we would know our direction for Cody for SummerSlam at the end. Were we going to get Randy turning on him and them doing Cody and Randy, which is a much higher star power match with a clear-cut heel and face than Cody against Solo Sikoa at SummerSlam, which has also been rumored, a guy who never wins matches. We'll get to all of that here in a second, but we definitely got our answer by the end. We didn't know going into the show who was going to wrestle for the Bloodline. It ended up being Solo, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu was the star of this match. I tweeted this on the Top Rope Nation account. My response to the Bloodline winning this match was not that Solo Sikoa should be challenging Cody Rhodes. It was that Jacob Fatu should be the leader of the Bloodline. He has so much more than Solo Sikoa. Now, I understand Solo is a guy who they've been slow building with the Bloodline angle now for a couple of years. But when you see him, and then you see Jacob Fatu, who's like the enforcer of the group, the guy has so much more charisma. He's so much more exciting in the ring. I mean, this match really came alive when he got in there. It was very slow when he wasn't in. And, when Jacob Fatu got in, all hell broke loose. And his spots were easily the best sequences of the entire match. What I came away most impressed with was Jacob Fatu definitely not wanting to see Solo Sikoa wrestle Cody Rhodes, which we'll get into here with the finish in a minute. But Jesse, your thoughts on the match in general before we get to that finishing sequence?
It drug out, like I said at the very beginning. I was starting to wane interest. The only time I would pop up is exactly when you said with Jacob Fatu, who's now in the Solo Sikoa role from early 2023. The hitman of the group, who is heavily protected. And then Cody defeats Solo, I believe, the Raw before WrestleMania 39, and then goes on to lose to Roman. And then Solo loses to Jey Uso the night before SummerSlam. And then just the stink starts to pile on Solo Sikoa. So hopefully they don't repeat this with Jacob Fatu. You got to let him accrue a lot of victories, and maybe Solo will start to get jealous of crowd responses. I have no idea where they can take this story, but for me, just knowing what's been going on with the bloodline for the last 2.5, 3 years, I can't take Solo Sikoa seriously as a number one contender.
No. What about you, Carl?
Yeah, I've been confused with the Solo thing from the very start, because to me it felt like a modern day DiBiase Virgil with Roman and Solo, where the natural arc was Solo to turn face by turning on Roman. Roman would get more out of character berating him and what have you. Look, Roman's going to be a super over babyface when he comes back, but I don't know if it's just another placeholder feud for Cody, and he'll beat Solo presumably at SummerSlam, and we'll move on with our lives. And it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of steam in him. Whereas the complete polar opposite is Jacob Fatu, who probably should have been, if they've had him under contract for as long as suggested, why was he not brought in immediately after Mania in this role as leading the bloodline if they had that opportunity? Because Solo's been beaten so many times already. Like, can you take him seriously? And the less said about Tonga Loa and his inability to do a low blow properly, the better. Because I was thinking, I was thinking when he came, well, I can maybe protect him by putting him in, Guerrillas of Destiny and with Tama. And I thought, well, I didn't really like them in New Japan. And he's regressed even since his New Japan low points, it seems, with old Tonga. So I guess he's going to be a man in a suit just in the corner going forward.
Yeah. So our guy Matthew, who was just on TRN Classics, chiming in the chat, he says that I think Jacob Fatu offers more than Roman. This is the guy they should have built around, but due to extenuating circumstances, he's only now there. I mean, yeah, he definitely exudes star power. No question about it. He's super exciting when he's in there. Hopefully they protect him. Jesse, when you first joined the pod, I believe it was last summer, we did a show where we talked about who was most likely to beat Roman at that time. And I said Solo, because he was really high on my list because there you are. You're back.
Hi.
Sorry. He was really high on my list because, they were slow building him. He was giving the looks to Roman. They were really protecting him. But then, as you mentioned, last spring, he was losing and losing and losing. And now they're trying to hotshot him into this world title picture. I'll go through the finishing sequence of the match, and then we'll talk about his past and what that means for what's happening at SummerSlam here. But of course, this being a bloodline match, they did the ref bump, so we get the ref knocked out. Solo accidentally knocks out the ref. And he had taken pretty much all of the finishers from the other team, but the ref is knocked out, so he can't get pinned. And then the ref is on the outside, and then the ref gets knocked out again against the ring post and the steel steps. And then we get, lots of finishers all around the place. Everyone gets back in the ring, and Sikoa ended up pinning Cody with the Samoan spike. As you guys mentioned, Tonga Loa, who was ringside in his suit, he went for a low blow and he missed the first time. Then he hit him the second time. It looked pretty bad. The big story is Sikoa wins with a lot of help. He hits the Samoan spike, pins Cody Rhodes, and clearly now they're going to build to the rumored match of Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes. And this kind of really calls back to another time they did this the month before SummerSlam in 1996 at In Your House International Incident, when they had Vader pin Shawn Michaels in a big 6-man tag the month before. They had Cornette's team, Bulldog, Owen, and Vader against Ahmed Johnson, Shawn, and Psycho Sid. Vader pins Shawn, so then Vader wrestles Shawn at SummerSlam the next month. Same formula here. You're getting now Solo Sikoa against Cody Rhodes, a match that just does not feel SummerSlam worthy. Not just because of how we personally might feel about Solo Sikoa, but how they have told us to feel about Solo Sikoa, because this is a guy who has won 3 singles matches, 3 in the last calendar year. He beat Kevin Owens on June 15th on SmackDown. You would then have to go back to 2023 when he beat John Cena at Crown Jewel over in Saudi Arabia on November 4th. And then you would have to go back to September 1st of last year when he beat AJ Styles on SmackDown. So they themselves have told us that he's not serious in these singles matches. They do a lot of multi-man matches, where they rely on interference and everything. But why would I buy him as a viable challenger to the top title in the company when he's won 3 singles matches in the last 12 months? I mean, it's the definition of hotshot booking. And if AEW does this, they get killed by the bad faith actors on social media. This guy doesn't deserve to be in the world title picture. I don't see that same narrative right now on social media. But Solo Sikoa does not belong anywhere near the world title picture, Jesse.
No, I mean, the only time AEW will do this is when you in a title eliminator scenario on a TV show, not on your second or third largest PLE. And all this is being used for, which, by the way, when that main event does go down, I think the real pyrotechnics are going to happen when Roman Reigns makes his eventual return. We're not waiting.
Yeah.
It's anticlimactic. Cody's going to retain. I think that's the biggest lock of probably the entire summer. Yeah. It's just a matter of Roman returning. Will Paul Heyman be at his side? It's just a vehicle to further the bloodline story, which is, oh boy, now we're going to get into a civil war probably around Survivor Series. Do we really need that right now? I don't know. But I mean, I guess if it's a vehicle to further Jacob Fatu, okay. But otherwise, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Matt in the chat. He said, even with, the booking being underwhelming, even Vader went into the SummerSlam match with HBK with more credibility than Solo. Absolutely, because Vader was in his first year in the company, had taken out Gorilla Monsoon. He felt like a bigger deal. Solo Sikoa he hasn't felt like a big deal since, to me, I mean, I know they've been trying to strengthen him on TV with the new bloodline and everything, but I just don't buy it because he lost so much earlier this year. They had protected him a lot up until WrestleMania 39, as Jesse said, but I mean, since then, not so much. He just doesn't. I don't buy it. I think the better route, would have been just they're still teasing it. They did a backstage segment where Randy again was staring at the title belt with Cody, and it's not like I'm the biggest Randy Orton fan, but SummerSlam wise, it's a much bigger star power match. What we're getting is just a backdrop for Roman's return. That's the only reason they're doing it. It just doesn't seem very logical that Solo would be catapulted into that title match right now to me. Carl?
Yeah, I would say if Roman's going to be at the show, why is he not facing Solo? And because that's the story. If the story is Roman and Solo build into Survivor Series, presumably War Games, why not have that match? And if you actually have stock in Solo, have him pin Roman, because he's going to get beat by Cody, and then Roman's going to come back with Paul Heyman by his side for what? We had these big return moments in 2021 when Brock came back and Cena came back. They're cool moments, but they mean nothing in the long-term booking sense. So actually, I don't get it. I like Solo, but he's not. He's fun to have on the show. It's not the main event of a show, and for all we bemoan Damian Priest booking, it's only Cody's star power that's keeping him feeling significant, because he has not been used well. I mean, the AJ retirement angle was good, but since Mania 40, he has not been used well at all. And for all this great booking of Triple H, and I mean, Mel said him and Tony Khan are not that dissimilar. I'd agree. There's a lot of similarities in how WWE and AEW being booked. It's just positioning, the example of the Eliminators, the title. They're on TV. They're vehicles to get people watching TV, some more successful than others. Whereas having Solo Sikoa, who's, as you say, won 3 matches in 12 months, main event SummerSlam. If this was a pay-per-view model, I wouldn't be buying. I would not be buying. If that was the only thing on the network for $9.99 in the UK that month, I wouldn't pay $9.99. It's a tenner. I wouldn't pay it. I'll try and get a torrent for it. Don't lock me up, WWE, but I wouldn't care.
Yeah. No, it's questionable. We talked about it right after Cody won the title on here, and we said, all right, what's his feuds? And they hadn't set up anything for the long term. It was just like, all right, we're going to have the Roman rematch down the line, but Roman's going to be gone for a while. We got the Rock match they can do way down the line, but what do we do in the interim? And they didn't have the heels laid out for him. So it's not Cody's fault, but like, yeah, the AJ stuff was good, as you mentioned, Carl, but they just haven't had anything naturally lined up for him as their babyface world champion. And, he's doing his best carrying these shows, but they just don't have the natural feuds, I don't think.
Nope. The logical channel, or the logical opponent for Cody Rhodes, especially to be a credible threat, is on the other channel, and he's going to win the world title over there.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that was SummerSlam, Money in the Bank 2024. SummerSlam coming at you here in just a few weeks. So, any other thoughts or anything else on the show that we didn't get to, or anything at all you guys want to discuss before we wrap this morning?
Gosh, I don't have a lot. No, I think again, just it was in a vacuum. This event was just there, and it furthered some other stories. But I think what I'm coming to realize is the world championship in both promotions are secondary to larger things, which shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah. I was going to mention this. Huffman just put out in the chat. I haven't seen it yet, but I did hear that the Hangman Jay White match on Collision was phenomenal last night. I'm going to be watching that later today. And the MJF promo, I did see some clips of that, but I haven't had a chance to watch Collision yet. I assume on the flagship later this week, though, we will be talking about AEW quite a lot. So if you're one of our AEW fans on the feed, wait till the next flagship. It'll be largely dominated probably by AEW talk coming out of the Owen. Carl, thanks for joining us this morning, man. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And I will second Ryan's comment about MJF's promo being fantastic. Collision was a great show last night. Was a superior show to two wrestling shows from Saturday evening or Sunday morning for me. The only thing I'd want to not plug but talk about briefly was the what do we think in terms of the card for AEW, in terms of we've got MJF and Ospreay. Are they going to go Hangman versus Swerve or Danielson? Because you've got two very compelling stories there, and it's an interesting decision to make, I think, for Tony. Well, it's a good position to be in, I might add. I personally would go Danielson myself, but interesting what both of you two think.
Jesse, I'll throw it to you first.
Okay. I think they're going to go the Hangman direction. I personally would like Danielson to be this just because we've discussed it not ad nauseum, but getting there, where give Danielson that run before he kind of hangs it up full time, and then let him drop it to Swerve in Seattle or Tacoma, the home of Mr. Strickland. So, but yeah, there's a lot of, look at all the feuds with Mercedes Britt Baker. You have Toni Storm and likely Mariah May, which the Willow Nightingale match shocked me a lot. I thought Chris Statlander was going to take that one down. Mm-hmm. There's directions with the international title. I wonder if Will's even going to hang on to it. Now you have Daniel Garcia, who's looking to be coming back as Red Death. We have Ricochet potentially making his debut here in the next month. Blood and Guts at the end of the month. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, I thought Dynamite last week was phenomenal. That was a great show as well. So I'm looking forward to watching Collision. I also would probably pick Hangman. I would rather see Brian, but they brought Hangman back super strong. Love the new wrinkle to his character. And just judging by how he was presented coming back, now I haven't seen the Jay White match yet, but I imagine they're going to want to keep him strong. And they got the built-in story with Swerve and the great matches that they've had in the past. So I kind of feel like they're going to go that route. As Jesse said, we've talked about it a lot on the pod. I would love to see Brian get one run with that title. I think he just said in an interview this week again that he doesn't want to be world champion. I just think For this guy to have been there the last 3 years to never touch the world title, I think is a waste. I think you got to get Bryan Danielson on that title's lineage, especially at the end of his career here. And I would like to see him main event Wembley. I would lean towards Hangman, but I think as a prediction, I would personally do Bryan. It's pretty much a toss-up. I'm really looking forward to the match in Calgary Wednesday night. See where they go. But I think the card itself is going to be really strong.
Especially when we don't know the avenues. Let's suppose Hangman wins. What does Danielson get at All In? Because we're thinking it's going to be MJF Ospreay. So do they have enough time? They have a little under 2 months to get Nigel McGuinness out of the commentary booth to wrestle Danielson in Wembley. I would pop huge for that match.
I've been teasing it a long time. And yeah, Bryan, he didn't work the show last year. So you would like to have him in a prominent match in a stadium show. We'll see. Nigel would make sense. That's been the tease for a long, long time. So, yeah. And you're not attending, you said, Carl, right? You're not going to be at it this year?
No, I turned 40 earlier in the week, so I've got a busy week seeing parents and stuff. So I think me and a buddy are going to watch it here. It's too late now to get a ticket. Well, it's not too late to get a ticket. It's too late to sort hotels. And even last year, I ended up staying quite close to Notting Hill. And you have the Notting Hill Carnival that weekend, and it's just an absolute nightmare to try and get in and out of Wembley. It's not the most best appointed stadium. I don't think I'd be lucky 2 years in a row to get out just before the queues hit, because people were waiting there for like over an hour last year. But if I could find a driver to drive me back to my hotel in London, I might consider it. But I'm getting quotes of 200, 300 quid, which is not paying that for someone to sit around for 5 hours for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll be doing a post show for sure, and maybe we'll have you on, or maybe we'll have you and someone who attended the show. We'll have to see, but we'll have a fun time reviewing All In. I see Ryan Huffman in the chat. Hangman versus Swerve at All In, and Swerve versus Danielson at All Out. That would be enticing. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But yeah, we shall see. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap. This has been a lot of fun. But I'm going to let you all get on with your Sundays. So appreciate everyone who joined us here in the chat live. If you haven't already, click like on this video, please, on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on podcast feeds, please hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a written review, even better. All that stuff helps us out, helps us get the pod out to new listeners each and every week. Jesse, it's been a blast, sir. We'll talk to you in a few days.
Looking forward to it.
All
haven't been together as a group in a few weeks.
No, it has been kind of odd scheduling. And Carl, hopefully before too long, we'll get you back on the show.
Cool. I look forward to listening to Thursday's show as well.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you all Thursday night. Take care, everybody. Have a good week.